Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Last summer I was talking to a relative at a family reunion and she had a lot of questions about homeschooling, like a lot of people do. And one of the things that she asked me really threw me for a loop because at the time I wasn't sure how to answer it. She actually said to me, "How do you know that your kids are smart enough?" And I think that a lot of people are curious about that. They want to know if homeschooled kids are smart enough. And I think that in order to answer that question, you have to actually look at the difference between what the general public and what the public schools or even private schools consider to be smart and what homeschoolers consider to be smart, because they really aren't very close to being the same thing. When you look at school smart, a lot of schools will consider their good students to be those, well, not just, I won't say a lot of schools, all schools will consider good students to be those students who do well on tests, turn in their homework on time, are able to repeat back information, so they're good at memorizing. They are able to sit still, they're able to sit quietly, and they're able to always get along with others. And when you turn to a homeschooler, I think that you realize that a lot of us, we don't give our kids tests. Now some homeschoolers do. Some homeschoolers really do look quite a bit like school, but even then I think that their philosophy of intelligence is different. But when you look at a lot of homeschoolers, we don't give our kids tests. A lot of us don't grade our children. So we don't use a lot of those markers that schools use to determine who is smart and who is not. And I think it's just because we have an entirely different philosophy of learning than what the school system does. The school system, as John Holt once put it, if you don't know who John Holt is, you really need to look into his books. But anyway, as John Holt once put it, the schools tend to look at children as being like bottles in a bottling company, and they expect their teachers to pour information into them. And if you notice on bottles, the necks are rather thin, so as the teachers are pouring in this information, some of it kind of goes over the sides and doesn't get absorbed by the student or doesn't get poured into the bottle. And I really think that's an accurate description of what the public school system views learning as. They want to be able to just put information into children, and then they want the children to be able to parrot that information back to them. And homeschoolers tend to look at learning in an entirely different way, because I know that I myself, I don't have my kids do a lot of memorizing. I'm not concerned with them repeating information back to me that I tell them. I want them to learn to think for themselves. I want them to have the tools that they need to find the answers to any questions that they may have. I want them to have the ability to learn the things that they want to learn when they want to learn them. And it doesn't mean that I'm never teaching anything to my kids, but what it does mean is that my kids have much more time to explore things on their own and to really learn how to learn that kids in school don't have. And I think another major difference between school smart and homeschool smart is, I already gave the definition of what school smart is. And I think that a lot of kids who are in school really get the short end of the stick because there are so many different types of intelligences that schools just don't recognize. And even if they recognize them, they don't support them. They typically tend to cater to one type of learner, and the rest of them are kind of pushed to the side and put in special classes and then are dealt with, by being stigmatized in that respect. Whereas homeschoolers, we realize that there are lots of different ways that your children can be smart, and they don't all have to fit into that box that schools put kids in. And I have a lot of kids myself, and so I see this in my own children. I have my 17-year-old son, he has ADHD. And when he was in school for a while, he would bring home worksheets that were 2 grade levels below the grade level that he was in. And, at the time, I was homeschooling some of the other kids, and I had homeschooled him before. And so I wasn't as hung up on grade levels as some people are, especially people whose kids are in school. But at the same time, I knew what that meant. To me, that meant that because I knew what he was capable of. I should add that. Having homeschooled him, I knew that he was capable of doing the work that the kids in his class were doing. So when I saw those worksheets that were, he was like in 7th grade, I think, and they were sending home 5th grade worksheets. And to me, that just meant that they wrote him off. He didn't learn in the way that they wanted him to learn. So it was kind of busy work, just keep him busy, keep him busy. And that's kind of the visual that I got when I saw the worksheets that he was bringing home. So now having him back home again, and he only went to school, I think, for that 1 year then, and then I brought him home, and thank God, because you know what? I see an entirely different kid than they do. And you know what? When he was in school, he didn't like reading, he didn't like writing, and you know what now? Being homeschooled, he doesn't like reading, he doesn't like writing. I'm not going to say that, homeschooling had this magic pill for him. But what I am going to say is that it has allowed him to explore the things that he excels at. If you would see my son now, any spider, snake, or frog that you come across, he can tell you exactly what kind it is, where it comes from, whether or not it's poisonous or venomous. All of these things that one of those kids who was a good student, one of those kids who was smart, I would have no idea about any of that stuff. But that's the area that he excels in. And that is the area that he wants to go into when he graduates school. He wants to either do something along the lines of wildlife photography, wildlife biology, he wants to be a naturalist, something like that. So what he is good at is what he's able to pursue at home. So while the schools were kind of pushing him aside as maybe just being one of those kids that didn't fit their notion of a good student, I see a great student who is able to excel in the areas that he is good at, and homeschooling gives him that opportunity. And he's not the only one. I have 2 other kids, one of whom in particular hates math. She's actually behind the camera right now. So she knew I was going to talk about her. She doesn't like math. And she and her 10-year-old brother, though, they are amazing at building things. They can take all sorts of materials from around the house and just make claw machines and little candy machines. And my 10-year-old son made a little coffee pot that actually was able to filter liquids through it. And my daughter, she makes little clay figures, and they are both so awesome working with their hands. And my daughter is able to take things apart. And I remember when she was like 10, she took apart an electrical circuit and explained to me how it worked, and then she put it back in. And I could have never done that. She's smiling. She remembers. I could have never done that. I was a gifted kid, and I couldn't have done that, and I had no desire to do that. But again, if I would put her in a school setting, would they consider her to be one of those good students? I mean, remember what I said. She doesn't like math. And the thing is that I think that she might be one of those other kids who kind of gets swept under the rug, because while she is brilliant at learning with her hands, she doesn't fit into that school mold, which is why I'm so thankful for homeschooling, because it gives her the opportunity to do the things that she is good at. And you know what happens when you have lots of time to explore those things you're good at? That's what you grow up to do as you get older. And you don't just do things because people tell you to. So to answer the question, are homeschooled kids smart enough? I would definitely say yes, they're definitely smart enough. And it might not be smart as in school smart. Now, there are a lot of homeschoolers who would do great in school. But my point is that there are a lot of homeschoolers who excel in areas that schools don't recognize. And I think that's the hard time that a lot of people have with homeschooling. They are not able to see learning in any other way than kids parroting back information. And to me, being able to just parrot back information that has no meaning to you, it's not a sign of intelligence. And I'm not saying that those kids who can do that aren't smart. What I am saying is that that is not the sign of them being smart. I'm sure that they have talents that a lot of times they don't really have the time to explore. So if anything, I would say that homeschooled kids, while yes, they are smart enough, they are better equipped than children who are in a traditional school setting, because they have that opportunity to learn how to learn. They have that opportunity to know how to go about doing things that they want to do. And they have the opportunity to excel in the areas that are their natural talents. So, that is all that I have on this topic. And to be honest, I don't even remember how I answered her. She surprised me so much that I think I probably just fumbled through an answer. I wish I would have had all this on my mind then, but I would have talked her ear off like I did to you. But anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, just leave it at the bottom. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, just click that subscribe button, and I hope you have a great day.